Hey guys, it's Heather from Tomatoes, Poppies, and Everything Gardening. Today is April 17th, and it is about 6.5 weeks since I started my indoor seedlings. And you can see by the window behind me, I've taken down my whole setup. So for me, this year worked out perfectly. It was a really streamlined, quick growing session where I had to have the grow racks in my kitchen bay window. So maybe I think 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks is what I had my setup in my kitchen here going. Probably only 4 weeks of lights. So that was a very economical, quick way to get my summer started. Versus years where I've tried to start them, mid January, early February. I had my lights going way, way, way too long. So I'm just very happy that I've kind of got a system down. I know exactly for my zone when is the best week to start. And for me, that is the last week of February and even the first week of March. Last year, I was a little late, so I did the first week of March, and it still worked out really great. So I have been putting some of my seedlings into the ground here, and I kind of made a map, and I've been trying to figure out where am I going to put all these plants, where am I putting all these peppers and tomatoes and eggplants. So that is a big thing that's kind of going through my mind. Also this week with the seedlings, they've lived outside. I did have to bring maybe one night. Maybe that was last week though. In the last update, maybe I talked about that. Mostly, for the most part, all of the plants have been outside. We are going to go down to 40, I think, on Sunday. So if I still have the majority of my seedlings, I'll have to kind of figure out what am I going to do if it's 40 degrees that night. Last night it was 44. That was a bit cold. So everyone went into the little greenhouse. It was zipped completely. And also, some of my bigger trays, I had to put those plants in my garage. So that's the update for the seedlings. But the main part of this video is that I'm at the part where I get really frustrated and it gets complicated for me because I'm like juggling all these lists. So like I made a list of how many seedlings I had that were viable at this point. So I kind of went through all of the seedlings this past week, pulled out the ones that were not usable and or sellable. I'll put a picture right here. You can see I had a few wonky ones that kind of never grew as they should have. They were some kind of, I don't know, genetic defect happened along the way with their germination. So those are gone, composted, recycled. And also I'm starting to make a list of people. So I made up a big kind of I don't even know what to call it. Summary. I summarized each tomato variety. I made a list of all the tomatoes I was willing to give away and or sell. I kept 3 varieties just for me, and that was the Purple Rain. If you remember that one, it took me 3 tries to get that to germinate, and it had to germinate in actually a cooler room. For some reason, it wasn't germinating at my grow station here at the window. So I did end up with 4 viable seedlings from that. I'm keeping those for me. And then I had 11 of the Supremo hybrid bush type Roma tomatoes that did fine. I'm keeping all of those, and I'm going to grow those at my friend Ivy's house, and we're going to share the profit or the proceeds or the fruit once they're harvested. So I'll make a separate video on the day we plant those. And then maybe the day we harvest those. So those are determinate, and they should all produce around the same 1 to 2 week window. And then also I kept, what was it, one more tomato, I thought. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe as I go through here, I'll remember. But yeah, so I did pretty good. Part of this past week going through the seedlings, I kind of made a tally of how many I ended up with, and I'm not going to read the whole list because I don't want to bore you guys to death, but I'll tell you some of the top producers. So the German pink, I had 21 viable seedlings. The mortgage lifter, I've got about 20. The Ace 55, I have 18 of those. The tangerine was 15. And, oh, I remember the other tomato I was going to tell y'all. The Sun Gold. I only ended up with technically 2 that are big enough to plant out, but I have 4 of the Sun Gold. So I'm going to give 2 to my friend Ivy, and I'm going to keep 2. So I'm not selling any of the Sun Gold. Sorry, that just popped in my head. So back to the list. My Tasmanian Chocolate Dwarf, where I actually saved the seed for my indoor tomato plant experiment, and just, ate a tomato, saved the seeds. And within, 2 weeks, I'm like planting those seeds. So I had 9 of those germinate and are viable seedlings. The Bradley tomato, I've got 14. I think all of the peppers pretty much ended up doing okay, except the yellow belt. I only have 2 of those. The black cherry, I ended up with 20 of those. So, oh, the basil, the sweet basil did great. I have like 31 of those. I have 31 of those. And I didn't start many of the hot peppers and the unique peppers. I think I only started maybe 5 or 6 seeds per little cup when I started those in the kind of block sowing method. And for the most part, I ended up with anywhere, I'm looking at the list, between 4 and 6 viable seedlings at the end. So I'm really excited to try some of those. Yeah, so that's the point I'm at now. I've made this listing. I've posted it on 2 Facebook groups. I've sent it to family and friends and neighbors. And now I'm waiting on people to kind of let me know what they want. And I'm making these little Post-its with what people respond with. And at some point I'm going to run out of plants. So I think I'm doing first come, first serve. And it's starting to get complicated. And then I'm also like, what am I keeping for myself? I don't want to give away all of my plants. It just gets complicated for me. And I wish there was an easier way for me to keep track of that. So I made that listing, and I'm sharing it with you. And the pricing for my plants, for the ones I'm selling, I am giving away a lot, but I am selling some to strangers on Facebook. And also my husband is kind of got a little business for me going through his work with a few of his coworkers, where he will share that list that I made up, and then they let me know. One guy responded this morning, and he's buying, I think, 14 plants. So the pricing, I just kept it simple this year. I just kept the same price as last year, and there's no formula for me. I just went with a random number of what I felt like would be a fair price if I was buying that plant. I could be underselling myself, very much so. But if you're doing this for yourself, I would recommend calculating the soil, the electricity for lights, and the products like the cups. The little solo cups are not cheap like they used to be. And I wanted to color code mine, so I spent the extra money to get the different colors for the different varieties, because that helps me to look at my seedlings and know, okay, I've got, a ton of basil, I've got a ton of tomatoes, but not so much of the hot peppers. I can look at the colors because I did like orange for the peppers and green for basil, red for tomatoes, purple for eggplant. And I also like seeing all the color together like that. So that was an expense. Water, maybe you could look at that. I often use my rainwater for my rain barrels, so that's not really much of a cost for me. Mostly the soil. The fertilizer, I very lightly use fertilizer for my seedlings, because I'm also using potting mix. So they don't need a ton of fertilizer. And when I do use it, it's very ultra diluted. But that could be something to think about for cost too. So there's no formula for me. I just randomly went with a number. I'll put the pricing here if you're interested. You could go to your local farmer markets or plant sales, look at what other people are charging. At the big box stores, I know that tomatoes are kind of expensive. And I've seen them listed for like, up to $9 for, a nice size start. But the smaller ones are still like $6, which To me, that sounds very expensive if you're a home gardener just wanting to buy a few plants, or maybe, even 10 plants. That would be really expensive. So that is another reason I start my seeds myself, because I love to try all the different varieties and I don't want to pay that much money. Like, I would not pay $6 for a start. I mean, I guess I would if I had to, but I remember the days when you could get a tomato plant for $2 or $3. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago either. So that's my pricing, and I did make my pricing cheaper. The more you buy, the cheaper the rate, and I think that encourages people to buy more plants and for me to get rid of them sooner. So that's how I'm handling the plant sale. This is where things are at week 6.5. We're going into the weekend, and I'm hoping to get rid of some of these plants this weekend. Probably not all of them, and I may hold back because we are going to have that cold night or two where it's getting down to 40. I'd hate for someone to buy a plant for me, plant it out this weekend, and Sunday night it's 40 degrees and their pepper gets damaged, because then they may think it's my fault. I mean, really, I could see people doing that. I do put a disclosure on my write-up, sales final, and I only take cash. Lots of people want to pay with cash apps, and I do not have a cash app. PayPal is as far as I'm willing to go. So cash or PayPal, maybe not even check. I don't know. I haven't taken a check from a stranger in a long time. So I don't know. It's a little bit exciting, but very frustrating at this point. And I've got a lot to do, not only with the plant sale and the seedlings, but my own garden spaces are really flourishing now, and the weeds are trying to, take over. So I need to really have the time to work on my own spaces, but now I feel kind of burdened with getting rid of all of these seedlings and finding the right homes, and trying to do it as fair as possible so that a lot of people get plants, and it's just frustrating. So let's take a peek outside at the plants. I'm sorry this was such a long video, an intro. I just wanted to kind of explain my process of trying to get the plants where they need to be with people, and how I go about pricing, and trying to figure out what exactly I have to sell and how many. The problem with these lists is I have to start deducting from the tallies as the people pick up their orders, and keep track of that. It would just be such a horrible thing for me to forget to do that, and then I tell someone, yeah, you can come pick up 10 of the tangerine tomatoes, and then I've only got 6. So and then I also have to remember not to give away too many of what I want to try, and I've done that before. That is easy to do. I kind of did that with one of the sweet peppers. I only have 1 left now. I've had 4 claimed, and I have 1 left. So I only had 5 that were germinated. So that's okay. 1's plenty. Maybe. I don't know. I grew way too many this year. So I'm going to go ahead and admit it. I grew way too many plants. I have nowhere where all of these plants are going. I'm just going to start sticking them everywhere and pray and hope for the best. So everywhere, everything is a complete mess. I've got everything in disarray, unorganized. There's the sucker that I planted on April 1st. And I'm just kind of feeling the stress of it all. You'll see in just a second why. So taking care of this many plants takes a lot longer than I really thought about. And it's kind of like childbirth. You tell yourself you're not going to do it again, and then you forget the pain. So this is my potting up station here. It's a mess, of course. And I still have tomatoes that have not made it into their next pot up size. And I can't sell them like this. And some have not grown as vigorously because of not being potted up yet. So that is where we are. Today is the 19th. I think I told you the wrong date earlier. And I have plants everywhere. That's my confession. I have plants everywhere. And these poor guys, I need to get him fertilized. So yeah, it's a little bit stressful, but I think once they're all potted up, I'll feel much better. I just won't have space for them in the greenhouse, but that's fine. They've been living outside mostly all day, all night. I'd say for the last week, except for that one cold night last night. So that is where I stand, guys. It's just a process. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm keeping, what I should go ahead and put in a solo cup. So I'm sure I'll feel much better next week when I give an update on how the selling went and if everyone's in the ground. So that's it. Don't know if you can feel the anxiety, but in my voice, but I'm definitely feeling it, and I need to just get over here and get busy. So I will talk to you guys soon. I hope you're having a better gardening day and week than I, and talk to you soon. Bye.